How are you doing? My name is James H. McBride, and in this podcast, we're going to discuss the four-step process. Different organizations and different authors use basically different acronyms for this process. We have the RACE, which is research and planning, action, communication, and evaluation. We have ROPE, which is research, objectives, programming, and evaluation, or RPIE, which is research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. The Certificate of Principles of Public Relations uses RPIE, or whatever you want to call it, with public relations when addressing these four topics. Research, which is analysis of the situation. Planning, which can include goals and objectives for the setting. Implementation, execution, communication, and lastly, evaluation. It's really important to start at the beginning and don't rush to solutions or jump into tactics before you have done adequate research. Determining any key publics and set measurable objectives, okay? So we're going to start with step one, which is going to be research. And research is the systematic gathering of information to describe and understand a situation, check assumptions, short publics and perceptions, and check the public relations consequences. Research helps define the problem and publics. Basically, you're going to ask yourself, who do we want to reach? What do we want them to do? What messages do we want to communicate to each public that will increase knowledge and change opinions, or even encourage desired behaviors we want out of people? Some research terms that you'll need to familiarize yourself with here will be primary or secondary, formal or informal, qualitative or quantitative, and scientific method. Research considerations, known advantages, disadvantages, and appropriate applications for each. You'll sit here and wonder what decision will be made from research results and what information is required to support this decision. What resources are available for gathering information? What other parts of your organization or other organizations have already done research you could use possibly? Does sample selection give you an accurate assessment of your target population? How big is your sample or universe survey population? How will you collect data? Survey, telephone, mail-in, online? How much time do you have for this survey and what you're doing here? And how specific do you need to be? What level of confidence do you need to have in the data that you are presenting here with everything? You also need to know what questions you will ask to assimilate this data. And will the results be used internally only, or will the results be made public is an important thing to know, along with how will you tabulate answers. Step two, we're going to go into the planning. This is going to be the goals, the audience, objectives, strategies, and tactics. The 5 planning method will give you the framework for basically any PR situation you have here. Even if you lack a direct experience in PR practice, these 5 points here can really help you look past what you don't know and effectively apply the knowledge, skills, and the abilities that you have learned here. Goals. Goals are longer term things, broader, global, and future segments of being. Goals may include how an organization is ultimately distinguished in the minds of its key publics. The publics are groups of people tied together by common sense elements. Public relations planners need to define clearly the groups with which they need to foster mutually beneficial relationships. Objectives need to say which public a public relations strategy is designed to reach. Objectives focus on the shorter term of thing. Objectives define What opinion, attitude, and behavior do you want to achieve from specific publics? Specify how much change you want to achieve from each of your publics, and they also tell when you want to achieve that they also tell you when you want to achieve that change. Objectives, they should be SMART, which is systematic, measurable, attainable. Results, where the outcome or orientated or relevant, and time specific is what they need to be. Objectives, establish standards for assessing the success of your public relations efforts. Objectives come in three general types. We have output objectives that measure activities such as issues 10 news releases during the month or post 3 tweets per day. Outputs can help monitor your work but have no direct value in measuring the effectiveness of a campaign. We also have process objectives, call for when you inform and educate the publics. And then we also have outcome objectives, specific changes in addressing opinions, behavior, or support. Outcome objectives require high-level strategy thinking and measure public relation outcomes, usually more far-reaching and carrying greater impact than such as changing awareness, attitudes, and even kind of behavior. Strategies, they kind of provide a roadmap to your objectives. Communication strategies target publics for change. Action strategies focus on organizations' internal changes. Strategies describe how you reach your objectives. Strategies include enlisting community influences to articulate improvements with, position the company as, or for strategic partnerships with. Tactics and tools are specific elements of a strategy or tool for accompanying a strategy. Examples include meetings, publications, production tie-ins, community events, news releases, online information dissemination, and social networks are also something that could be done there. Activities or details or tactics, 6 meetings, 4 publications, 3 blog posts, and 1 tweet per day. Activities have dates, indicates who is in charge and what audience or outcome is expected of these. Step 3, implementation, executing the plan and communication. Action, the organization is taking as part of the plan. Messages sent through each communication channel. Number of people reached in each key public. Monitoring results of actions and messages while keeping track of campaign milestones. Step 4 will be evaluation. Here you will measure the effectiveness of the program against the objectives. Identify why to improve and develop recommendations for the future. You're going to adjust the plan, materials, message, and activities before you go forward, and then collecting data and record information to use in research phase of the next program. Now then, you may ask yourself here, how the 4-step process, after I've explained to you what it is, how is that going to be assessed on the examination you take for your public service or your public relations, certification. Basically, in the research stage here, they're going to want to know, can you identify a research approach, methodologies, and information gathering needs that support public decisions? Also, they want to know, can you differentiate research methodology, primary, secondary, formal, informal, quantitative, and qualitative? Do you know how to apply definitions, examples, and characteristics of different types of research? Do you understand time and budget constraints for various methodologies? And are you familiar with sample size, cost, characteristics, and delivery methods that can help you identify the most appropriate research methodology for a particular situation? Kind of an example would be if an issue requires information from legislatures or CEOs, a survey is not the best tool. By knowing the characteristics or disadvantages of surveys, you know that personal interviews may be your most valid research method here going forward. Then in the planning stage, what do they want to see from you? They want to see in the publics. Are you able to identify and prioritize publics and segments of those publics? For instance, employees are a public. Management is a segment of the employee public. Some publics are more important than others. Can you select the most important public from a brief scenario? And do you know this public is important? Goals, objectives, and strategies. They want to see, can you differentiate among the four terms here? Kind of an example. Given a well-written objective, two very strong strategies or tactics, and a weaker or poorly written objective, would you be able to select the most appropriate objective? Example, objective. All right, strategies should include the use of social media, media relations, public engagement, employee engagement, third-party endorsement, and opinion leaders' interactions. Strategies may call for celebrating success among early adapters, positioning the organization or its products, correcting or clarifying positions, fostering vital online communications, or delivering specific information to certain decision makers. Scheduling, such as scheduling a news conference, sending a newsletter, hosting a meeting or a series of meetings, writing a news release, or planning a special event. These are some of the tactics that may be used. Messaging and spokesman. After reading a very brief scenario on this test, they want to know, can you identify the most appropriate message and spokesperson? This level of knowledge can be developed in two ways. One, professional experience, and two, studying others. Case studies in textbooks or the trade press. The following principles guide out professional judgment in message development and identification of a spokesperson. Public relations responsibility to act in the public interest. Ethical values of honesty, accuracy, fairness, and full disclosure. Ethical responsibility to our client or employee. Organizational mission, values, goals, and objectives. Plans and program objectives to influence awareness, opinions, or actions. Desire to build mutually beneficial relationships. Spokesperson's credibility, prestige, and likability among key publics. The key interest and values, concerns of key publics. Key publics' perceptions of risk and threats. Tactics and tools. After considering a range of options, you could determine the most appropriate use of tactic. Could you identify those that should be included in the plan? Criteria to consider in evaluation tactics include available time and resources, ability to reach and influence key publics to achieve desired objectives, compliance with ethical and legal guidelines, return on investment, multiple methods and multiple touch points to reinforce consistent messages. Do you understand budgeting? Do you know what to include in a budget, i.e. staff time, materials, and out-of-pocket expenses such as printing and postage, web design, and website hosting? And then lastly, we have evaluation. And on the test, we want to know, are you able to judge appropriate uses of evaluation? Can you link evaluation to specific publics and objectives? Evaluation of success is only as good as the quality of the objectives. Every objective should include a statement of how it's accomplished and will be measured. Both criteria and tools, outputs, outtakes, and outcomes are different. Outputs and outtakes are measures of execution and strategy, while outcomes are measures of basically of achieving objectives. Measurements should be included in the plan and the budget, otherwise assessments won't be done. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and I hope it helps you while you study for your test.